many of you believe in spirits. You know, it is a Halloween time, and here on TimBeck2, just seems to me that it'd be interesting to have some people tell some stories. Some stories of maybe a spirit that takes place in someone's home, in some location. We hear about it all the time. And when I was at the Jeanette Lloyd Theater after a 50th anniversary program of the Thespians, I was the only one in that theater. And I heard footsteps on the stage. And when those footsteps kept walking, I asked who was there. And the footsteps continued, but no one was on stage. Needless to say, I would have won the bronze medal in the Olympics as fast as I walked out, or ran out. As I ran out with orange and black balloons in my hand, I came down to the car where my mom and dad were still at, and my dad goes, "Looked like you just saw a ghost." I said, "Nope, but I think I heard one." And how about doing the paranormal tour at the Masonic? I felt cold spots where there were no vents. I also asked someone in a room, "Hey, are you here?" And I heard a knock. And if you've ever been in the crystal room, what about the idea of there being no wind, but a single tink of a crystal continued to go until you make a comment, and then it stops? I was at the Historical Museum, and I smelled the perfume of the woman who lived there many years ago. Is it real? You decide. Along with my stories, I've also invited Robert Winter, Technical Director of FHS, and Amy Larson of Stockton, Illinois, to tell a couple fun ghost stories for you. It's spirit time here on TimBeck2. I'm here with a good friend and my technical director here at Freeport High School, Robert Winter. Robert, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm here too. And I think that the whole idea about this is the Jeanette Lloyd Theater is a wonderful place that we've spent a lot of time. And you spend even more time at the Jeanette Lloyd Theater.
I do spend a lot of hours there.
Do you believe that there's somewhat of a spirit there?
I absolutely do. I am a little worried that after the remodel, I've had a lot less of the energy that was in there. But I definitely know from the 15 prior years I spent in there, there was definitely something in there.
So you've met up with the spirit, and there have been students who also have had some issues. Do you have any stories about that?
Absolutely. One of the first times, and it's kind of a thing, we call him Harold. And there's a couple different things that have happened. The ones that have happened to me is just in general, feeling feet walk across the stage when you're in there in the dark. And one time I was on stage and I looked up and it was 11 o'clock on a Saturday night, and there's only one way to get to the catwalk. And I saw someone walk through the catwalk, and I heard the clanking noise, which if you've ever been in the Jeanette Lloyd, you know when someone's on the catwalk, and just walked across to an area where you couldn't see anywhere. And then no one appeared on the other side. And there's as I said, only one way, and it's past me to get up there. So that was one of the first times I saw something up there, which was absolutely crazy. But you know, he's kind of, Harold got blamed for a lot of the more mischievous things that have happened around the theater too. During Showtime 35, I was building a drum set, and I had these tom drum things. Now, prior to this night, there had been a couple different things that had crashed, and one of them was hanging fine for almost 3 or 4 weeks and just fell on its own accord. But this one thing I was putting up, I had it perfectly balanced, and I went to get the screw gun, and it wasn't moving. And I had got my screw gun, turned back around, and the thing fell the way that gravity would not take it. So it did not fall into where it was. It fell away from where it should have been. And I back in those days, I didn't have quite the crew that I have now. So I was obviously working long hours by myself, and I just went off and was like, Harold, you're either messing with me to be mean, or you're messing with me just to try to make me feel better. It ain't working. So leave me alone. Let me get this work done. And it was at that moment I realized one of two things is true. Either there is a spirit here and I'm yelling at it by myself at 11 o'clock at night, or there isn't a spirit and I'm crazy. I needed to go home anyways. And I literally set my tools down and just walked out. I don't even think I turned the lights off as I left.
That's super.
Yeah.
So a few of your techies, few of the individuals that have been a part of the theater, actors, actresses have felt the spirit a bit. And you have any stories about that? Yeah.
Obviously every year kids ask about Harold. We have some kids that full on every time they walk in the theater, they say, hi, Harold. And they leave, they say, bye, Harold. And it's really a part of our culture. But there's always some kids that just don't believe enough and want to test the waters. We had a student about 6 years ago walk in and just came in the lobby and said, I was standing center stage. There was about 15 other people in the theater. And he yelled out, Harold, come at me, bro. And I kid you not, Tim, the entire house light system dimmed and went back up. Not like all the way, like halfway. Now you think, oh, that's something good. No, there was no one by any of the controls at that point. It was long before we had the control to be able to do it from our phones and stuff. And it wasn't like a perfect dim. It was like,
what was the kid's reaction?
Oh, he ran screaming out. And that kid was a sophomore. And for the next 2 years, he refused to go over there by himself. He had sometimes the director would send him over there to set something up, and he'd be like, no, someone else needs to go over with me. I'm not going in there by myself, which, I don't think Harold by any means is malicious, but he's definitely going to mess with someone if they mess with him.
Well, I told a story early on in this podcast about the Jeanette Lloyd that I'm very proud of, that my father asked me if I saw a ghost, and I didn't see one, but I heard one. And a lot of people had that issue with the Jeanette Lloyd. You have anything to end there?
Yeah. My other favorite is I had a lighting designer. It was during I think it was during Grease. So this is quite a ways back, and the theater was full of people. It was during a dress rehearsal or something. And the lighting designer at the time, when you told him to fix something, he needed to do it right then. And he ran all the way down, ran all the way up and did it. And, as you know, but, for the listeners, when we have dress rehearsals and there's like a little bit of a in between time, there's noise in there quite a bit. And we're all kind of talking in between scenes or something. And you just hear from the catwalk, he touched me. And all of a sudden you hear clank, 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 running down the ladder. And that kid ran all the way out. And I was so like, what just happened? When I finally caught up to the kid outside, he swore he was leaning over by himself up in the catwalk, and he was adjusting a light. And he said he swore he felt someone on his back touching him. And there was a hand, not like a little piece of wire or anything, a hand. And that kid did not go up in the catwalk by himself ever again.
Well, it seems that there are a lot of stories in theaters because there's a lot of energy and there's a lot of characters and there's a lot of, let's just put a lot of sizzle when it takes place. And boy, if those stories are what they're supposed to be, happy Halloween, everybody. Thank you, Bob.
No problem, Tim.
And I'm with Amy Larson from Stockton. Hi, Amy. How are you?
Hi, Tim. Good. How are you doing?
I'm great. So you had a spirit or a ghost in your house. What was that all about?
Yeah. So this was probably 2006. So 18 years ago. We moved into our house. It's a family home. It's my husband's dad built the house, and it actually passed away in the house.
In the house?
Yes.
Okay.
So shortly after we moved in there, we just kind of had some strange things kept happening. a lot of it was electronical stuff where we'd be sitting in the room and the TV would just turn on and start like blaring. Like the volume would go way up or the TV would turn on, but it was never like a show. It was like when the station doesn't come in.
Really?
Yeah, like the black and white dots.
Oh, yes. And the volume was loud.
Yes.
Wow.
And I feel like there was a light situation too. I never experienced that, but I feel like my husband was saying something about like lights turning on and randomly.
So with the lights turning on and things dropping and the TV turning on loud, has this continued to happen for 18 years?
No.
What happened? Why is it gone?
So it freaked me out. I didn't like it. Like I loved my father-in-law. It was great. I didn't care that he was there. Like we felt like it was him. Kevin said, "Oh, it's just my dad like messing with us basically." But one night I was home alone and I just said, I said, "Richard, if this is you, like stop what you're doing. I don't like it. And if you continue to do this, I'm listing the house for sale like tomorrow."
And he wanted that house to stay with you guys.
Yeah. Like that was like when he was dying, like he wanted us to buy the house since it was a family home.
And then nothing after that.
Nothing. Not a thing.
Now you did say that he built a tree house in the backyard.
Yeah.
And you said there's a story for that.
So, yeah, he built a treehouse for the grandkids. So our kids never met him, their grandpa. So our youngest, Noah, kept saying that he would look out the window and say that he saw someone in the treehouse. And we're like, no one's out there. We don't, we just thought it was like imaginary friend stuff, little kid stuff. And then one time he saw a picture of his grandpa and he said, that's who was in the treehouse.
All right, I just got a chill up and down my spine. That's crazy. So basically, it's one of these things that as you've been dealing with this or whatever, everything now seems fine. Everything's
Nothing's happened since then.
Is Halloween a big holiday for you?
Not necessarily. I mean, we have kids, so
Sure.
it was always a big thing, and I like spooky stuff. I like a good tale.
Well, you definitely gave us a good tale. Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
TimBeck2 is very proud to have another community spirits podcast with a man that you've probably seen in town. He is a farmer. He is a man of many talents. He is a historian, and I bet you didn't know that he also has a mini donkey named Jack. I bet not many of us have those. This is Al Kelchner, and Al is here today to talk about a wonderful opportunity on November 2nd and some other things dealing with the community spirits. Hi, Al. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Al. So, Al, let's just get going here. What's the ceremony, the activity that you have going on November 2nd?
I'm collaborating with a Freeport resident, Kim Sigafus McIver. She had a shop in town named Quiet Souls, and she represents herself and goes by that name. And we are doing a Native American event on November 2nd. It's in two parts. In the morning, we will have a presentation of history and culture, an overview of Native Americans, primarily in the continental United States. And it starts at 10 a.m. Then we'll have a break at 11 and continues on from 11 to noon. First part, again, is an overview of Native Americans' history, culture, etc., in the continental United States. And then the second part focuses more on Native Americans in this area, particularly the Sauk and Black Hawk.
So we have a flyer that you gave us that we're going to have on our website for everybody to take a look at. But where does this take place at?
Freeport Public Library in downtown Freeport, 100 East Douglas Street. And then we're also going to have an afternoon session, and that's going to be an outdoor ceremony celebration by Daniel Many Hawks Johnson. And I want to mention also that Kim is part Native American. I believe Daniel Johnson is 100% Native American. And that's going to be held at the farm on 25516 Spring Valley Road in Shannon. That's 25516 Spring Valley Road in Shannon. And it's an outdoor ceremony honoring Native Americans, particularly of the area. There is a huge Native American presence, and there was at the farm. And after that, we're going to have a little campfire and tell stories, spiritually related stories connected to Halloween. Of course, it's appropriate for the season.
Well, Al, I've known you for a while, and we've had some outstanding talks, and I've learned a lot about you. And I thought for the Community Spirits podcast, you would be wonderful to be here. I hope everybody goes to the festivities. Again, if you take a look at the FREEPOD.org website, you will notice the flyer so you can get all of the information needed to go on this. But Al, I learned from you that some fabulous jobs that you had in New York City, but because of 9/11 and other things, you wanted to come back closer to your relatives. So you came back to the Midwest and you purchased a farm around the Shannon area that you have talked about. And this has been an experience for you. And I'm not saying any which way other than positive, an experience for you when it comes to the farm that you live on. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. It has been an experience. It's been a life-altering experience. I'd always had a desire to have some connection with agriculture. My dad's side of the family, my dad was a farm boy, grew up in Michigan. That side of the family still farms in Michigan. And we used to go there regularly on vacation. So when I moved out here to the Midwest, to Illinois, I started to look around because this is a huge farming community. My first stop in Illinois was Rockford, where I lived for a couple of years. When I moved here in 2002 in October, after the 9/11 fiasco. And I found this really rundown farm out in Shannon through a real estate agent. And it was within my price range. It needed a lot of work, but I thought this is an opportunity. And I could look at it and see something that it could become. And I was capable of making that happen. So I made a down payment. We went to contract. And at the closing, sitting with the owners, the sellers, I asked, just out of curiosity, as a joke, actually, if it was haunted. And they got very silent, quiet. They were talking with their real estate broker, and they got quiet and said, and it's interesting you ask that. We were just talking about this weekend. It's very haunted.
So really what happened is because of where you lived to where you were for the farm, you really didn't check or really weren't a part of this farm or visit this farm until the closing. Is this correct?
It was, I never went into the house until the closing. I did visit it. I spent half an hour. I wondered when I located the address or saw the address and located the farm if I should enter the property because no one was home. And I thought, well, it's for sale. I'm interested in maybe purchasing. And I did. And I went up to the back, one of the back rooms of the house, looked through the window. Nobody was home. And I walked the property a little bit and said, yeah, this is it. It had a creek, it had trees, fields, pastures. It was an old farmhouse. In fact, it was built in 1878. And I later found out the property and the house, I guess in itself, are pretty historically significant because it was settled before there was a Carroll County. Carroll County was established in 1840. So I made the down payment, went to contract. We closed in Freeport. And I was told, oh, yeah, it's very haunted. And I thought that was pretty cool at the time. But it actually ended up being my worst nightmare. And that started out the night that I moved in. There was activity, which I observed and friends observed. But 18 years later, I can say it's been an amazing experience that has changed my perspective overall in life and my perspective of life and death.
Okay. And so with this being the Halloween season, and with the individuals or the spirits that you have, that you have felt, been a part of, and whatever in this farm, do you have a few stories to tell us?
I do. A haunting isn't necessarily about scary and threats to ourselves. I have a very different perspective on it. I really do believe, as is promised in different sources, in the Bible is one, that there is eternal life. I believe that everything is energy, some form of energy, and I can't conceive that once we die, that's it. That seems too final to me. And if everything is energy, then it means energy is created, can be altered, but it can't be destroyed. So why wouldn't we continue on? And that's been my experience at the farm. But there are some scary stories there, but here are a few that are more comical, I suppose. One was the upside down weed. I finally tackled weeding at the back of the house, and it was in the summer. And my first victim was a giant weed that stood about 4 feet tall with a bushy canopy. And I was reluctant to remove it because I noticed hummingbirds were feeding off its flowers, and it had a deep taproot after I knocked it down. I discovered that because I had to shovel the taproot out. So when I'd finished, the sun was beginning to set and it was time to call it quits for the day. But I still need to go to town. So I got in my pickup and inserted the ignition key and then looked toward the back of the house. I was shocked. The large weed I just dug up was erect and perfectly balanced on its canopy with a taproot pointing skyward.
So basically it was upside down. You
was.
Take it off. It's laying on the ground. You go inside, you come back, and it is standing straight up.
It is. On
upside
the canopy.
down.
Yep, with the roots facing the air.
That's
the sky.
That's a story. That's a story. What else has happened with you and throughout?
Here's another humorous moment. The night that I moved in, we discovered what was later reported to be, because there have been psychics or mediums who have visited the farm, and I rely to a certain extent on what they report. And they reported the first night, the night of the move-in, there were friends of mine, and one of them Elizabeth was particularly gifted psychically. And she talked about a huge mountain man who was in overalls and in the kitchen. And she had said he had something to do with agriculture. He's from the area. And that turned out to be pretty accurate later on from other reports. We called him Big Mike, for lack of a name. But anyway, Big Mike apparently connected with me very early on. And it's reported he liked me because I was doing things to improve the farm. It was very run down. I was trying to work on turning that around. So one evening, it was after 14 hours of being in the fields and harvest, I came home. I was exhausted. And I wanted to take a shower and just go to bed. So I went in and I left my clothes in the bathroom and took my shower and went on up to bed, thinking that the next day I'd pick things up, throw them in the washer, the clothes. So I woke up the next morning around 7 o'clock and went downstairs with the cats following me. And as I looked towards the back door at the kitchen where I had a chair where I would remove work boots and sweatshirts and things like that, I saw the gray underwear by the chair next to the back door. And I thought, wow, it's one of the cats must have picked it up off the bathroom floor. But as I walked to the chair and bent over to pick them up, I discovered the underwear was under one leg of the chair. It couldn't have been the cats. One of them lifted the chair leg and put the underwear under there. I don't think so.
With this taking place, there's also I guess the one question I want to ask you is I want to move on to our next. The activity on November 2nd sounds wonderful. And I'm glad it's coming out to your house, coming out to the farm. I'm sorry. Do you feel there's some Native American influence out by your farm?
Oh, it's tremendous. I'll give you another example, because this is not simply me reporting about my personal experiences. I've had probably well over 100 visitors there in the past, and they've had their own personal experiences or collective experiences. Kim connected with, who's my collaborator on the Native American event, connected with some women in Freeport who were interested in the paranormal, a term that I don't particularly like using. Supernatural is more accurate. And they were more interested in the spiritual connection rather than the Hollywood ooh scary. So she asked if they could come out and visit. And I said, yeah, sure, which they did. And as we sat in the dining room, which looks out on the backyard and has a window to the backyard, it was May. It was around Mother's Day. And the window was open to let in fresh air. We were talking. It was about 10:30 at night. And all of a sudden, we heard, all of us, what I can only describe as maybe 10 feet away from the window, out in the backyard, a Native American cry. It's kind of, it was a war cry. That's the only way I can describe it, but that's probably from watching, bad Western movies. So including myself, 7 of us heard that. And all were really startled. It was loud. There was no mistaking. It was really loud. All of us were startled and looked at one another like, what did we just hear? What just happened? But there have been also reports by other people who visited of early in the morning hearing drumming, chanting. And there is a small resort, cabins, not far from the farm, maybe 4 miles. And they have people who come out from the city and stay a weekend. Typically, they ask at the end of the stay on Sunday, as people are departing, how was your visit? And generally, it's a very positive and favorable response, but that's not all. There are people who claim that they woke early in the morning, but they were awakened actually by sounds of chanting and drumming.
So with this experience, you've been at your farm now over 20 years. You've been on farm over 20 years. And you have come up with, you have these stories, and there are YouTube channels that have done videos of yours. You have had individuals that have been out there and have videoed. So individuals that want to go on YouTube and check this out and listen to this. I guess to tie up this podcast, because this is the quickest 15 minutes I think I've ever encountered because of this, these great stories. In these 20 years, how has it changed you? I mean, how has this, from when you went there immediately, probably thinking, this is going to be scary or whatever. I'm sure it's calmed down because of conversations that you've had, but how has this changed you individually living in this area, I guess you would say?
Well, it's completely changed my paradigm. It's completely changed my perspective on life in general. I have a much broader sense, not specifically of any single item in particular, but of the world around me. I'm just going more with the flow, I guess, than I ever used to in my life. Because I do believe, one, that we do die, our physical bodies cease to function. But I believe that what we call the soul is a unique energy signal to each one of us, or it's an energy signal that's unique to each one of us. And I believe that simply we're in a different dimension that overlaps the dimension of we, the living, and that there can be communication, but it's extremely limited. And I believe in what some people would call God, a higher power. I don't know what God is. I can't define God, but I can say that there is some higher power that's in our lives always. And just to be open to and receptive to different possibilities, and don't set everything in concrete, because it's an amazing universe. And this has just reinforced that we live in an amazing world.
Yes, we do. Well, we could, if this podcast wasn't supposed to go between 15 to 20 minutes, we could probably go for 2 or 3 hours, but we're not going to. We're going to end up. Al, I appreciate you spending some time with us. Good luck. Tell us really quick again what's taking place on November 2nd and what people should, why people should show up.
We're having, I'm collaborating with Quiet Souls, and we're having a 2-part event, no charge to the public. First part is held at the Freeport Public Library. There will be from 10 o'clock to noon. There will be a discussion or a presentation about Native Americans generally in the continental United States. A 15-minute or so break with actual Native American refreshments. And then more specifically, Kim is going to talk about Native Americans of the area. And at 5 o'clock, we're going to have an honorary ceremony at the farm, followed by some storytelling. That's from 5 to 6:30.
5 to 6:30 p.m. down at your farm. And there will be a flyer on FREEPOD.org for all of you to take a look at. Al, thank you so much for being here. And this has been TimBeck2, Community Spirits on FREEPOD.org. Whether you believe or not, I hope you have been entertained and are ready for your Halloween season. If you have extra candy, you know where I am. But more importantly, if you have stories, if you have ideas, if you have things to talk to me about, get a hold of me. Thanks to Jim Yeager, Arthur Schmidt, and the HCC Mass Communications Department, because they make us sound a lot better than we really are. And more importantly, you know why this community is so wonderful? Because you are a part of it. And maybe a few spirits too. This has been TimBeck2. Thanks for listening. So long, everybody.